Okay, let's just jump right in. For the last couple of years, we've basically all been fed the exact same story, right? We've been told over and over that artificial intelligence is on the verge of cheaply replacing human labor. The idea was that a digital worker would be infinitely cheaper than a human one. But behind closed doors at tech giants like Microsoft and Uber, yeah, that narrative just hit a massive, expensive brick wall. So today, we're doing a full financial autopsy on the great AI replacement myth. Let's get into it. To really grasp why the richest, most technologically advanced companies on the planet are literally unplugging their own internal AI tools, we have to start with this incredibly revealing reaction: head exploding. That is exactly the phrase Uber's chief operating officer Andrew McDonald used when he finally saw their internal AI budget. And honestly, what makes this so wild is that despite these explosive costs, for all the money his engineering team burned through, he couldn't even point to a single improvement that customers could actually feel. So, how in the world did we get here? Well, here's our roadmap for today's explainer. We're going to start with the broken promise, then we'll uncover the token maxing trap, compare chatbots versus agents, hit the hardware wall, look at the margin collapse, and finally arrive at the human victory. All right, section 1, the broken promise, from hype to budget collapse. To really see this broken promise in action, just look at the sudden, almost panicked reversal by the very companies that pioneered this tech. This timeline beautifully illustrates Uber's aggressive 4-month financial collapse. Check this out. In late 2025, they roll out an AI tool called Claude's Code to about 5,000 engineers. By February 2026, 32% of them are using it. By March, adoption skyrockets to 84%. And then, April 2026 hits, and Uber's chief technology officer has to admit that their entire 2026 AI coding budget is just gone. A full year of funding literally evaporated in 4 months. It's basically like a family taking their entire 25-year mortgage fund and blowing it on groceries in a single weekend. And the sheer scale of this burn rate, it's just staggering. $1,200. Now, to put that into perspective, that number represents the massive cost of tokens that Uber's CTO personally torched in just one single 2-hour demo. No joke. While your typical engineer was racking up maybe $250 a month, the heaviest users were hitting $2,000. The budget wasn't just leaking, it was hemorrhaging. Which brings us to section 2, the token maxing trap, gamifying the burn. You're probably wondering, how did the bills get so astronomical so fast? Well, they actually gamified the burn. Big tech introduced this wild concept called tokenamaxing. It's basically corporate slang for burning through as many AI tokens as humanly possible, where heavy AI usage was practically treated as a badge of honor. These companies accidentally created a classic tragedy of the commons. Because, a single prompt costs just a fraction of a cent, right? So engineers figured, hey, one extra prompt costs practically nothing. Nobody hesitated. They just kept reaching for the machine. And this gamification literally turned AI usage into a wildly expensive sport. Amazon was actively pushing its staff to maximize their token usage. Meta went as far as building actual leaderboards, they called it Claudenomics, to rank their workers by how much they spent on AI. The engineer firing off the most prompts looked like the ultimate future of work. But nobody actually stopped to track the bigger financial picture. When you start compounding millions of daily tasks across thousands of workers, it all balloons into a figure that absolutely no one could defend. Let's move to section 3, chatbots versus AI agents, the real cost driver. Because here is the real kicker, guys. The chatbots were just the warm-up. The actual financial danger arrived when workers stopped just chatting and turned the AI completely loose. Enter agentic AI. Now, the absolute crucial point here is that an agent is a completely different beast from a standard chatbot. It doesn't just answer one single question. It autonomously chases a complex goal through multiple steps and iterations. And with that kind of autonomy comes a fundamentally different and frankly terrifying cost structure. I think this comparison brilliantly illustrates the contrast. A standard chat prompt is a single, neat little exchange. You ask, it answers. The meter clicks once. It's kind of like switching on a desk lamp. But an AI agent, because it's autonomously chasing a goal, a typical job runs 5 to 30 times the tokens. And in the worst case scenarios, we're talking spikes past 1,000 times. It's literally like lighting up an entire football stadium just for one person to read a book. Just follow this loop for a second. The agent drafts the plan, writes the edit, runs the test, and then
it fails and has to retry. The absolute priciest part of agentic AI isn't the work that actually succeeds, it's the work that fails. The best agents out there still fail a ton of real-world software tests, requiring maybe 5 to 10 full attempts. Think of an AI agent like a plumber who charges his full hourly rate every single time he drops his wrench, bills you for every trip out to his van, and then still leaves the pipe leaking at the end of the day. You definitely wouldn't call that a time saver, right? You'd call it a scam. And at a corporate scale, it's a massive financial drain.
Okay, Section 4. The hardware cost wall. Why chips won't save us. Now, you might be sitting there thinking, hey, wait a minute, won't better, faster chips eventually just fix this and make it cheap? Well, just check out this quote from Brian Catanzara, the VP of Applied Deep Learning over at NVIDIA. He said, "The cost of compute for my team is far beyond the cost of the employees." Guys, when the top executives at NVIDIA, literally the very company whose chips power this entire AI boom, admit that running the machines cost more than the people working on them, we really need to pay attention. The machine is simply no longer the cheap part of the equation. Which naturally leads to this big question. If Microsoft's new custom chip, the Maya 200, produces 30% better tokens per dollar, why on earth isn't AI getting cheaper for these massive enterprises? It's this fascinating paradox. Hardware is genuinely getting more efficient, and the cost of raw thinking power is absolutely dropping. Yet, the overall cost of running these digital workers just continues to soar. So, what gives? Well, the answer is right here. Every single bit of hardware savings is instantly eaten up by the exponential token demands of these new AI agent workloads. As the price of a single token drops, these autonomous agents just demand vastly more of them to do their complex reasoning and endless retry loops. So those hardware efficiency savings, they totally vanish long before they ever reach a company's bottom line. Let's look at Section 5, the margin collapse. Trillions spent, money lost. To really grasp the broader economic implications here, just look at this number. 24-fold. Goldman Sachs is predicting that agentic AI could push global token use up 24-fold by 2030, reaching roughly 120 quadrillion tokens every single month. Big tech is frantically racing to build out the infrastructure for this massive demand, preparing to spend nearly $1 trillion. But here's the crazy part. The very demand they are spending absolute fortunes to capture is the exact same demand that's destroying their profit margins. And honestly, this isn't even a brand new problem. Look at this math from back in 2023 regarding GitHub Copilot. They were bringing in about $10 a month per user, but the heavy users, they were costing $80 a month to run. That is a net loss of $70 per heavy user. Selling AI access was basically the business equivalent of selling $20 bills for $10 and just crossing your fingers that you'd make it back on volume. The more you sell, the more you lose. And these new AI agents are just making this gap even wider. And that brings us to Section 6, the human victory, the efficiency paradox. This leads us to the most surprising triumph of this entire explainer. It turns out humans and AI agents follow entirely different economic curves. Look at the human worker trajectory. A junior worker doubles their output as they learn the ropes, they get way faster, and their pay stays relatively flat. But the AI agent trajectory, every time an agent doubles its output, it requires insanely complex layers of reasoning and retries, and its token bill multiplies exponentially. At the end of the day, plain old human arithmetic wins out. Because of this math, the workplace isn't actually clearing out, it's just adapting. The new most valuable role in the building is becoming the verification specialist. Humans are absolutely essential now to watch the agent and catch it the exact moment it slips into one of those expensive failure loops, stepping in to kill runaway processes before they literally bankrupt a project. Big tech is for sure going to keep using AI, but it's going to be heavily restricted to smaller, low-cost tasks. Workers are going to use agents, not be replaced by them. Even major app companies like Duolingo are already quietly walking back their AI replacement policies because they woke up to the reality of human cost-effectiveness. And this really just brilliantly summarizes where we are right now. Humans are the cheapest thinking engine on Earth. We've really come full circle here. A flexible human mind runs on a sandwich and a decent night's sleep. It never, ever bills the company 1,000 times over just to stop and think about a problem for a minute. The Great Replacement wasn't defeated by some massive union or by fear. It was defeated by a simple Excel spreadsheet. So it's a pretty provocative thought to leave you with today. If the great AI replacement was ultimately defeated by a spreadsheet, how will you leverage your role as a human verification specialist in this brand new economy? The hype has finally settled, the math has spoken loudly, and ordinary workers have secured a really surprising victory.
The big question now is, how will you adapt to work alongside these tools, keeping the machine in check? Thanks so much for diving into this explainer with me, and stay curious.